Hello aspirants, a very warm welcome to Skholar.com. This is Rohan Dange, your faculty for Social Security. As all of you are very well aware that UPSC has declared the date for EPFO exam, which is going to be held on 9th of May 2021. So now that it is clear that the exam is going to be held on the stated date, it is very important for us or for the aspirants to realize that they have to start their preparation in the right earnest. And keeping that in mind, we at Skholar.com have come out with a special and a very well curated course which is going to not only help you leapfrog over the first hurdle of the exam, but will also help you immensely in your interview stage also. So this is Rohan Dange welcoming you once again on board for a detailed discussion on social security at Skholar.com. So without much of a further ado, let's begin. So in this EPFO series, we're going to start with social security, and in that we will first talk about international human rights law. See, so what does it say? The right to social security has been recognized in a number of countries as a right protected by the constitution itself. There are various democracies across the globe, and all the democracies have a written constitution, almost all of them, if not all. And all of those constitutions, which are written or unwritten, have explicitly mentioned social security as a measure to eradicate poverty, to alleviate hunger, and also to tackle many of the social ills and issues. Internationally, the concept of social security as a basic human right came to play by the International Labour Organization's Declaration of Philadelphia 1944. Now, this could be asked in your exam, right? International Labour Organization's Declaration of Philadelphia 1944 and its income security recommendations in the same year. Right, so very important from examination point of view. You must take a note of this in your copy. Right. So then this right is upheld in various international instruments like the International Bill of Rights. Right. So and is reflected in various international conventions. So International Bill of Rights becomes very important here. Most of the states in the world accepted and recognized this as a right, as a human right, and enforce it through their legal instruments. How do you conceive legal instruments? Through the constitutional work. So you weave legal instruments by introducing an element of constitutionality. Okay. So, as you very well know, Social Security was established as a basic human right in International Labour Organization's Declaration of Philadelphia 1944. So, the right is upheld in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights UDHR 1948 and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. These two conventions are very important, right? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. See, in every country, it is these two covenants which became the basis for all the laws pertaining to social security and all the articles pertaining to social security in the constitution of various countries, especially in the democracies, right? Right. So therefore, it is very important that you should know about these two covenants, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. Okay. So under the international human rights law, every state has three obligations: the obligation to respect, the obligation to protect, and the obligation to fulfill human rights. What do you understand by this? What do you understand by the obligation to respect? See, every country has some kind of cultural landscape, and that cultural landscape could also be multi-diverse. So, respecting the diversity and respecting the cultural heritage, right? And through the respecting that cultural heritage, you also end up safeguarding human rights. Correct. So, for example, in case of India, we have various dialects and various languages. There are 22 languages which are enshrined in the, what you can say, part schedule 8 of the constitution. Correct. Apart from that, we have at least 1600 recognized and recognized languages, and we have more than 50,000 dialects which are spoken in India. The state has made every endeavor to lend us a level of respect to these languages, and by doing so, the state has ensured so not only social diversity and cultural diversity, but has also now ensured that adequate protection is extended to these matters of cultural heritage, right? There is also an obligation to fulfill human rights because in every society there is a marginalized section of people. What do you understand by marginalized section? people who have been not been in the mainstream of the society, rather people who have been on the fringes of the society. In case of India, the caste system has played a very major role in pushing people out of the mainstream into the fringes, right? So because of the caste system, we have created a cosmetically driven caste hierarchy, in which there is basically it's a social distribution of people, but it's a very hierarchical distribution wherein the people from the so-called upper caste are found to have some elements are found to have unfurled a lot of toxicity and tyranny on the people from the so-called lower caste, right? So the prefixes that we have derived, the upper and the lower, that helps us to differentiate. And if you move out of the urban islands, what you see in rural clusters is that there is still a lot of distinction, and there is still a lot of operation which happens in the name of caste, right? So obviously there is an obligation on the Indian state to fulfill human rights, which came into effect after 1947. So once the constitution was enacted, the state was obliged to fulfill human rights. And that is not just that just does not pertain in the case of the people from the so-called lower caste. It also pertains to women who have been traditionally kept on the margins of the society and who have faced a lot of humiliation, right? The archaic and the bigoted practices in our society have lent some sort of what you can say lack of privilege to this gender, right? We have the third gender and the transgenders also, which require now complete protection of their own human rights. Children, old age people, internally displaced people, and specially abled people, these are all the elements in our society which require special status and which require special efforts from the state to protect their human rights, right? So the international human rights law states that every state has three obligations, that is the obligation to respect, the obligation to protect, and the obligation to fulfill human rights. Respect all the religions in India, right? And respect the institutions that are associated with these religions. That is also one of the aspects which is associated with the Indian state. Okay, so this is how you understand the international human rights law. It has three pillars. Okay, moving forward, there is something called as the International Bill of Rights. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights recognizes the right to social security in Article 22. Okay, now this Article 22 is very important. Okay, there's some kind of factual questions will always be asked in the exam. So what we have done is wherever it is required, we have mentioned the relevant article. So all you have to do is you have to note it in your copy, and issue will be taken care of. In the exam, whatever questions that they ask will be definitely from what we have done here at scholar.com. Anyways, so it states that everyone as a member of society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation in accordance with the organization and resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights, and that is indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his personality. Okay, so this is the International Bill of Rights, and there is an Article 25 also, which speaks about maintenance of standard of living and provisioning of adequate healthcare facilities, right? It also talks about food, clothing, housing, and medical care, necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. So Article basic 25 basically speaks about all kinds of social disabilities which can afflict an individual, and then talks about taking care of the social disabilities by embedding it in a particular law, right? Article 25 also speaks about motherhood and childhood. Do not forget that in war-torn areas, it is the mothers and the children who are affected the most. So obviously, in not just in war-torn areas, but not in normal areas as well, mothers and children are entitled to special care and assistance, right? So because that they are going to lay the foundation of the society in the future, right? So all the children, whether they are born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection, right? Sometimes children are also born in red light areas where a lot of prostitution activity goes on, but those children are also entitled to the same social protection as somebody who is born in a what you can say in an urban cluster in a well educated family, right? So children should not be differentiated against, and motherhood has to be protected, because the health of the mother, the respect and the dignity of the mother, it will definitely have a concomitant impact on the health of the child, and the kind of social status that the child receives in the future, has a very crucial link with the child's mental health, right? So motherhood and childhood are obviously entitled to special care and assistance. Now, you also have something called as International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. Right, I had introduced this to you in the first few slides itself. So it says that it has an Article 9, and it says that it basically recognizes the right of everyone to social security, including social insurance. Right. So first of all, it states that social security is a right. Social security is not a choice on part of the state. Social security is a right, and therefore the state has to provide you that, regardless of whatever social parameters or whatever social indicators that you're born with. Okay. And what do you understand by social insurance, right? For example, the policy of reservation is something in the realm of social insurance. People who have been kept out of the mainstream of the society for the past 500 to 1000 years. Now, their mental makeup has suffered a lot. Their genetic makeup also has suffered a lot to a certain degree. And when if you go to the rural areas, you will find that many of the people coming from particular caste, they are not even allowed to enter the premises of the school, right? Likewise, there are many exclusions and many disabilities which are imposed upon the people coming from the so-called lower caste, and as a result, what we require is social insurance for the people who have been kept out of the mainstream of the society. And therefore, reservation as an affirmative action by the state provides some sort of social insurance. There are various other examples of social insurance like Janani Suraksha Yojana, which is meant for pregnant and lactating mothers in India. That is also some sort of social insurance, because under this scheme you get 6,000 rupees, but right, and that will help the mother a great deal in taking care of her nutrition during the time that she is pregnant, and not also during the time when when she is a lactating mother, right, which will have a positive impact on the health of the child as well, right? So likewise, there are various social insurance mechanisms which are inbuilt in our constitution and inbuilt in our law framework. Then you have the right to social security, which is furthermore recognized in Article 10. Article 10 states special protection should be accorded to mothers during a reasonable period before and after childbirth. And during such period, working mothers should be accorded paid leave or leave with adequate social benefits. The important element here is paid leave or leave with adequate social security benefits, right? So that means you do not want to compromise on the financial health and the financial independence of the mother, and also you want to extend social security benefits to the mother. So this is the kind of handholding assistance which is expected from the state, right? So that is enshrined under Article 10 of the ICESCR, right? So ICESCR, in that sense, Article 9 and Article 10 are very important. I hope you have made a note out of that. What you can do is, if you want to if you want to write down the text in your copy, you can just simply pause the video and you can just take down important text right from the PPTs. Okay. Now, according to the United Nations Human Rights Committee, Article 26 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights on Discrimination applies to the right to social security. In a general comment from 2000, the committee highlighted the right to social security as an area where women are frequently subjected to discrimination. So basically, Article 26 focuses on social security and women, right? Because women have been kept out of the mainstream of the society. Women are not financially independent. Women are not the decision makers within a household. And women are, of course, not extended the benefit of education and healthcare to the extent that a boy is or a man is served, right? So in that regard, women are found to be utterly lacking in their social status. Women are found to be utterly lacking in their social ability to make themselves financially independent, and what you can say, you it is very important, therefore, from that point of view, that social security as an area should focus upon women empowerment, right? So that is enshrined under Article 26 of the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Very important. So such factual questions also could be asked. In fact, expect a lot of factual questions this year. Okay. Then there is a convention on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination. So when you talk about the right to social security, it is recognized in Article 5, which requires that state parties must prohibit and eliminate racial discrimination. We have seen that racism is the kind of poison which has absorbed the entire world, right? In India, we do not find racism, but there is obviously an alternative form of discrimination which goes in the name of casteism, right? In the recent past, we have seen that the Black Lives Matter movement in US, which had spiraled out of control, was also attacking racism, right? Racist divisions have dotted the historical landscape of mankind. Right from Europe to North America, racism has reared its ugly head from time to time. And what we see is that racism leads to a lot of debilitations of human rights. Racism leads to racism is a direct threat and a direct attack on your right to live, right? So, of course, there is a convention on elimination of all forms of racial discrimination without distinction as to race, color, or national or ethnic origin, to the equality before law, notably in the enjoyment of the right to public health, medical care, social security, and social services. Okay. So, this particular convention enshrines the right to social security for women in Article 11. So, Article 11 is very important from the point of view of, again, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Women perhaps suffer the most intense kind of discrimination in the world, not just in India, but in the world. Why? We say that Dalits in India or the Shudras in India suffer from social disabilities, right? You add women Dalits to India, then they are the sufferers of the highest form of social disabilities, right? Likewise, blacks in US have suffered racial discrimination historically. But if you talk about a black woman, then she is the recipient of higher level of human indignation than in comparison to the black man. Right. So, woman Dalit or a black woman will always be at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to social status, and therefore they are the bearers of a lot of racial discrimination and other forms of discrimination. Correct. So, Article 11 under the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women states that the women have right to social security in the cases of retirement, in the cases of unemployment, sickness, invalidity, old age, and other capacity to work, as well as the right to paid leave. So that will give some sort of financial independence to women. Then there is a convention on the rights of the children. As I've told you, children are also the most affected, where in areas where civil war is going on, or in areas which are ravaged by war, or in areas which have been bombarded in the past. It is the children who suffer the most and who are the most vulnerable. Okay. So, the Convention on the Rights of the Children enshrines the right of children to social security in Article 26. Okay. So, basically, it states that state party shall recognize for every child the right to benefit from social security, including social insurance, and shall take the necessary measures to achieve the full realization of this right in accordance with their national law. So, children should be at the center stage of any social security measure in a country, right? And the benefits should, where appropriate, be granted considering the resources and circumstances of the child and persons having responsibility for the maintenance of the child, as well as any other consideration relevant to the application for benefits made by or on behalf of the child, thereby securing other needs of the child and also ensuring that children do not get left behind. Okay. So, the Convention on the Rights of the Children also elaborates on the right of children to Social Security in Article 18. So, now here Article 18 is important, right? So, keep on taking notes of these articles and under which conventions are they stated, right? बस आप इतना समझ लो कि कौन से कन्वेंशन की बात हो रही है और कौन सा आर्टिकल उसके एसोसिएशन में आता है. अगर ये दो चीजें आपको समझ में आ गई तो ये इसके बियॉन्ड आपको ईपीएफओ में बहुत ज्यादा पूछा पूछा नहीं जाएगा. And of course, we are stating whatever that is mentioned in these articles. So, Article 18 under the Convention on the Rights of the Children states that parties shall render appropriate assistance to parents and legal guardians in the performance of their child rearing responsibilities and shall ensure the development of institutions, facilities, and services for the care of children. Let's not forget that children require special care and attention, right? And because children require special care and attention, there has to be a special convention which deals with that. Okay, so there are certain UN conventions and certain specific instruments which have become the legal vehicles for ensuring social status and social health and social insurance to the marginalized sections in the society. Right. So I have given you this in your you in a tabular format so that it becomes easy for you to note down. Right. So in one column we will be speaking about any international, national, or a regional convention or law. In the next column, we will be talk about the rights which are guaranteed under that convention or law. And then there are additional comments which will add value to your preparation. So let's talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. In that, there are two important articles, Article 22 and Article 25. Article 22 speaks about the right to social security. Right, and Article 25 recognizes the right of everyone to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, and other lack of livelihood problems in circumstances beyond his or her control. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not legally binding. Very important. It is not legally binding. Okay, it is only prescriptive. It is not instructive. So it's like a directive. Okay, so the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not legally binding. Right, in the exam they might just give you a statement. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is legally binding. So that would be a false statement, but it has provided the foundation for the recognition of social security in treaties subsequently adopted. So it has become the foundational principle for formulating any treaties in the future. Likewise, you have the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So in that, we have already spoken about Article 9, Article 10, Subclause 2, Article 10, Subclause 3. So Article 9 recognizes the right of everyone to social security. Article 10, Subclause 2 recognizes the right of working mothers to adequate social security benefits. And Article 10, Subclause 3 requires state parties to undertake special measures of protection and assistance for children and young persons. Right. So Article 9 is not defined. However, the CESCR seeks information regarding the same 9 branches of social security that are a part of ILO convention. ILO stands for what? International Labour Organization. So what does this suggest? It tells you that a right to social assistance to meet basic subsistence need is excluded. However, some scholars have argued that such a right could be derived from Article 11 that recognizes the right to adequate standard of living, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to continuous improvements of living conditions. So, Article 11 is something that actually talks about basic subsistence needs, which are very important for survival. Right. So then there is a convention on elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. In that you have Article 11 subclause 1 and Article 11 subclause 2 subclause B. Okay. So basically, Article 11, subclause 1 talks about eliminating discrimination against women in the fields of employment, and it talks about ensuring equal rights between men and women, and basically thereby ensuring social security, particularly in the case of retirement, unemployment, sickness, invalidity, old age, and other incapacity to work, as well as the right to paid leave. Okay. Then there is Article 11 subclause 2 which requires the state parties to adopt appropriate measures to introduce social benefits during maternity leave. So Article 11 subclause 2 subclause B is specifically about maternity leave. Okay. And Article 11 subclause 1 is a general article. Article 14 subclause 2 recognizes the duty of the state parties to eliminate discrimination against women in rural areas, and in particular to ensure such women the right to benefit directly from social security program. So here Article 14 subclause 2 is majorly focused around rural women. Okay. So such kind of associations have to be found while studying social security. Then there is a convention on the rights of the child. In that you have Article 26 and Article 27 subclause 1, subclause 2 and subclause 3. So Article 26 basically recognizes the right to benefit from social security, including social insurance. And Article 27 subclause 1 recognizes the right of every child to standard of living adequate for child's physical, mental, spiritual, moral and social development. Perhaps in that same light, we brought about something called as the RT, which is right to education. And we made right to education a fundamental right for the children of ages between 6 and 14. So that can be derived from Article 27 subclause 1 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Under Article 27, subclause 2 and subclause 3 states parties must, in accordance with the national conditions and within their means, take appropriate measures to assist parents to implement this right, and shall, in case of need, to provide material assistance and support programs, particularly with regard to nutrition, clothing, right? Because that is also very, very important. Then you have the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. Under that convention, you have Article 5, okay, which again recognizes the duty of the state to ensure that no racial discrimination is being carried out, and also to make sure that everybody gets right access to social security measures and social services. Then let's talk about the International Labour Organization. Very important once again. So the ILO Convention 102 in Social Security recognizes 9 specific branches of Social Security. What are those? Medical care, sickness benefits, unemployment benefits, old age benefits, unemployment injury benefits, family benefits, maternity benefits, invalidity benefits, and survivors benefits. So these are also very important. And minimum requirements are stipulated as to the coverage of population, the content level of benefits, the protection of the rights of the contributors, and the beneficiaries and matters of administration. So these 9 benefits are important from examination point of view. You please note them down. Very, very important. So we see that ILO, International Labour Organization, which has its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, has tied social security rights to employment, although it is increasingly promoting broader notion of social security, in which the state employers and workers all have a role to play in financing social security benefits. So what are the important elements of rights based approach to social security? Comprehensiveness means the coverage of the social security measures should be all encompassing, and it should include unemployment, ill health, disability, and all kinds of other disabilities or other kind of limitations like maternity, old age, child support, right? So the social security measures should be comprehensive, and thereby they should eliminate the risk of exclusion, right? Nobody should get left behind. Then there is universality. Universality means anybody who is in the need of access to social security should get social security easily. Then adequacy and appropriateness, right? So basically this is about targeted beneficiaries. First of all, targeting the identifying the beneficiaries, and then the targeting the beneficiaries, so that adequate measures reach the people who are even at the bottom of the pyramid, right? And basically appropriate measures should be given at the right time, right? So like for example, maternity benefits are specifically meant for pregnant and lactating mothers, right? So likewise, appropriate and adequate programs should be filtered out for a particular section of the population. There has to be respect for equality, right? In India, there is a problem of equality because the social parameters and drivers like caste, like even class, and of course gender. These are the parameters. Even ethnicity and race have actually trampled upon right to equality or respect for equality in India. So that should not be a casualty, right? And therefore, the respect for equality has to be kept in mind while formulating laws. There has to be respect for procedural rights, because democracy is all about procedures. Democracy is all about rule of law, or what you can say, due process of law. So the due process of law or the due process of the procedure should be followed, right? Only then one can say that the social security measures have been implemented in a timely, fair, and an equitable manner. Now, obviously, I want to talk about the constitutional provisions in greater detail, which I will be doing it in the next chapter, but I just wanted to give you a heads up in this lecture itself that the Constitution of India also speaks about social security right from its inception. And when you talk about the inception of the Constitution, it begins with the preamble, because preamble actually enshrines the constitutional values which are reflected in all the articles and schedules and parts in such a long document. So the preamble of the Constitution of India, if I may speak it loud to you, says that we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to provide them all fraternity, assuring dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of the nation. So of course, as all of us are very well aware, that preamble is something which is not technically enforceable in the courts of law. But the preamble is like a mirror. If we want to check what are the preambular values and whether they are in consonance with our constitution, then what we can ensure is social security. So once you understand preamble and once you understand the values which are enshrined within the preamble, then you can understand the subsequent articles and laws which become statutes in the future. So preamble's objectives can be very explicitly achieved through the implementation of directive principles of state policy, which is enumerated in the part 3 of the constitution. Right, it is actually enumerated in the part 4 of the constitution. It is printing error here. It should be part 4 of the constitution. Part 3 of the constitution talks about fundamental rights. Okay, so it should be part 4. My apologies for that. So preamble's objectives can be achieved through various directive principles of state policy enumerated in part 4 of the constitution. So like for example, take article 38. Now article 38 states the mandate of the state to secure a social order for the promotion of welfare of people. Article 38 subclause 1 directs the state to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as efficiently as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic and political shall inform all institutions of national life. So Article 38 basically paves the way for a lot of social security measures which would come to life under Part 4 of the Constitution. So if the states which are mandated to enact the directive principles of state policy actually do it, then a lot of social order can be maintained. Likewise, you have the 44th Amendment Act, which added Clause 2 to the Article 38, which directs the state to minimize the irregularities and to endeavor to eliminate inequalities in status, facilities, and opportunities, not only amongst individuals but also groups of people residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. Vocations means uh, employments, jobs. So, I will be talking about the constitutional status of social security in India in the next chapter. This was just a formal introduction. So, this is myself, Rohan Dange, logging off from scholar.com for the moment. I will see you in the next lecture where I'll be speaking about the constitutional status of social security in the country. So, till the time we meet next, happy learning, keep revising, and keep practicing social distancing.